Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here and enjoying this presentation during your busy day. Hopefully, you'll learn something new. And if not, hopefully, you're just going to be encouraged to keep doing all the wonderful things you're already doing. So, this is Heart Health Month, although I do think all months should be heart health related, but we can always kind of have a little special focus on different things. And this month, albeit, sort of the heart month in general, we're going to talk a little bit more about how we can have some healthier habits. So, just in case you are not familiar, our organization is called Rutgers Cooperative Extension. We have three departments within the Agriculture and Natural Resources Department, which also is comprising of the Marine Sciences Department. Then we have the 4-H Youth Development Department, and then we have my Department of Family and Community Health Sciences, where we focus on nutrition, health, and wellness and all programs there within. Our partners are obviously Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, the state of New Jersey itself, the County Board of Chosen Commissioners, and the National Institute for Food and Agriculture, or USDA. RCE, Rutgers Cooperative Extension, is an affirmative action equal opportunity employer. And with that, we can kind of move on. So some of this information, as I said, you may be very familiar with, but we like to give an overview. We like to try to just clarify things, but heart disease in and of itself, what does that really mean? It's kind of an umbrella term, also known as cardiovascular disease, that really comprises of multiple types of heart conditions. So things such as hypertension, which is really just a fancy word for high blood pressure, a history maybe in the family or yourself, particularly of a heart attack or stroke, maybe even possible angina, coronary heart disease, or other types of heart conditions and heart diseases. There are several heart conditions that can increase your risk for heart disease. So you might have a condition that is not super problematic for you right now, but if left untreated or not kind of aware of where it might lead, could lead to more complications of coronary heart disease. So things like high blood pressure and high cholesterol, even possibly smoking, all those things can lead to more serious complications and lead to other issues with heart disease. So, if you're not aware, heart disease has been unfortunately a long time leader as the number one death in the US. And it can cause death, obviously, in both men and women, all different, nationalities and ethnicities. But it does unfortunately affect more, certain folks more than others. But there are things that we can do to try to create those healthy habits, maybe try to prevent it from either becoming a bigger issue or just prevent it being an issue at all. There are some things we're going to go through that we can't prevent, but we can do our best to try to combat where it might lead to at that point. So, just a few other statistics here that 1 in 5 of the heart attacks that occur in the US are also what we call silent heart attacks. So they can still be detrimental to your health and cause damage to your health. But unfortunately, we don't always know the signs and symptoms, and it could happen. So being preventative and doing things on a preventative nature is really what we're looking to do. Okay. So, heart disease in adults. As we age, things change. We know this. We know our bodies are aging always, and that there are things we can't control. So, things like the heart and the blood vessels, they do change as we age. There's stiffness in our arteries that kind of starts to happen as we age. Something called atherosclerosis is the buildup of fatty plaques that cause that heart disease as we age. And unfortunately, if we're age 65 or over, we're just generally at a higher risk for having a heart attack, a stroke, developing coronary heart disease, aka heart disease. So the coronary just kind of gets dropped. They all sort of mean the same thing, and possibly heart failure. So, what are some of those risk factors that we have to sort of keep in mind? Hypertension, again, high blood pressure. That can be a risk factor by having that. However, if you have high blood pressure and you are seeing a physician and you're getting it treated, you could live a long, happy life. As long as you are aware of the problem and taking care of it. It doesn't necessarily have to be, the end all of things, but there are things that we can manage those symptoms, like diabetes. Diabetes can be a debilitating disease as well. However, it can be managed. So by having some control of those things can help reduce your risk for a heart disease. Being overweight or obese, again, another illness disease that can be problematic. But if we're on our way to help reduce some of those symptoms and help get our bodies into a better, kind of guideline of where it should be, even losing 10% of your body weight, if you are in the overweight or obese category, can do wonders. So just making sure that you are maybe seeking a physician's help and seeing what can be done for you, because it is different for everybody. And that goes hand in hand with an unhealthy diet. You could be somebody who is like the epitome of physically fit and have a completely unhealthy diet. And that can cause some problems internally as well that maybe we're not even aware of, because, oh, look at that person. They're totally physically fit. They must be in great health. That's not always the case. Sometimes I literally just saw somebody yesterday walking out of the gym smoking a cigarette. Great, you're at the gym. I'm glad you're taking those steps to be, healthier for yourself, but the smoking isn't doing you any good either. So, there's some things that we all have, and no judgment here. We all have some good things and some bad habits that we all can look to. So that's why I say when I do all my presentations, you're here for a reason. You're already interested. You already have taken that step to do better. So maybe, nobody's perfect. So maybe there's something you can do here and you'll learn that maybe you can, help yourself. There's something cholesterol, and we all have heard that, I'm sure. Oh, what's your cholesterol? Are you under 200? Are you over 200? Okay, well, that's a great number. You want to be under 200, your total cholesterol. But there's two numbers you want to really find out: your LDL cholesterol and your HDL cholesterol. We like to categorize your LDL cholesterol as your loser cholesterol. We want it to be low. We want their LDL, loser cholesterol, to be low. We want our HDL, our happy cholesterol, to be high. So that's kind of an easy little way to remember when you ask the doctor, great, my cholesterol is under 200. That's not the only question you want answered. You want to then ask, what are my two numbers? Where's my LDL and where's my HDL? Because you want one to be high and one to be on the lower aspect of things. And it doesn't have to always be, oh, well, it's so close. If you're working towards those goals to lower your LDL cholesterol, well, then great. Maybe it went down a few points, and that's a positive move in the right direction. Being physically inactive is also putting you at a higher risk for heart disease. And I'm not saying you have to go run and train for a marathon. If you are that person, great, 100% behind you and support you for that. But maybe just getting out and walking, maybe just moving in your chair and doing some exercises and things like that. You start with baby steps. Those small steps can make a huge difference. And as I mentioned, smoking and even secondhand smoke exposure can raise your risk for heart disease. Also bearing in mind that excessive alcohol consumption. We don't want anything to be in excess. We want everything to be in moderation, but even particularly alcohol consumption. A lot of people say, oh, red wine's good for your heart. Well, that's great, but not in excess. Nothing in excess is great. So you need to kind of keep that in mind as well. So what are these symptoms? How do you know? What are you going to do about it? Well, a heart attack can kind of mimic many things. You might just feel a pain in your chest, which seems to be the obvious one, right? I remember my father when he had a heart attack, his arm, he couldn't lift like a very small little item, and his pain in his arm, he had no strength and nobody knew what was going on. And somebody who, I was very young, so I remember somebody in his like people that he was sitting there talking to kind of said, maybe you should get to the hospital. Went to the hospital, turns out he had a heart attack. It was just that he couldn't lift, maybe like a 2 pound item. And he didn't necessarily have pain in his chest. He didn't necessarily have the shortness of breath, but it was just some things weren't right. And that's where you have to really listen to your body. It could be upper body pain, it could be neck pain, discomfort. You could feel like indigestion, heartburn, being nauseous or vomiting, extreme fatigue, dizziness, and shortness of breath. Now, as I said, all those symptoms, I could be like, oh, I got some of those things on any given day. But I've also been to a cardiologist and had some preemptive, like just kind of checkups. I don't particularly have any heart illnesses right now, but it does run in my family. And there are a lot of hereditary issues we can't control. So by being and having those, we often go to our general practitioner and get those physicals, those annual exams. You can also do the same for a cardiologist and just get yourself checked out. Know that nothing is really a problem, so that if by chance it becomes a problem, you know you were already good here. So then when they do some tests and they find something, or hopefully don't find something, they know where you were. So it's just a baseline. So that's why when you look at some of these symptoms, you might be a little bit more aware because you're like, oh, well, that's not normal. Something's not right. There's something called an arrhythmia, which is basically like a palpitation or a fluttering in your chest that you might feel. And that's something that you want to kind of get checked out and looked at. And then also heart failure. You might be like, oh, why are my feet so swollen today? There's really no reason for that. My ankles, my legs, that would be a concern. And you should definitely have that checked out and looked at, making sure that you are, maybe not overly having some issues, shortness of breath, and not being able to walk from one side of the room to the other. That is a problem. And it could be a multitude of things, but you want to make sure that that heart, we're keeping that ticker in check. So just know that any of the symptoms, or you can have none at all, but those silent heart attacks that still occur can be damaging. So that's why I really encourage everyone to have that preventative care. So let's move on to some happy things. Did you know that there's plenty of places in the world that have wonderful health outcomes? So in Greece, they have the lowest rates of middle-aged mortality and dementia. In Japan, they have the highest life expectancy rates in the world. These tend to be, if you ever heard of the term blue zones, these tend to be some of those blue zone areas. In Italy, there's 10 times the centenarians. So that's people who live to be 100 or higher per capita over the US. And then we even have Costa Rica, very low rates of heart disease and tends to be a very happy population. Happiness also goes hand in hand with sleep. If you are someone who can sleep at least 7 to 9 hours a night, and it can be cumulative, you might wake up, have to run to the bathroom or something like that. 7 to 9 hours a night, studies have shown that lead to a happier person, which then leads to more longevity. So they tend to be people who live longer, are happier because they've slept that 7 to 9 hours a night. Now, again, there's other factors to be involved there as well, but that's just a little tidbit that, you're like, look, got to go to bed. I need my 7 to 9 hours. I need to make sure I'm doing the things that I can do to help myself. And then here in the US, it's great to see that California has the lowest rates of heart disease and diabetes and very low rates of obesity. So a lot of those things are very positive, and we kind of want to like attain some goals and see why those areas are like that. So some of those healthy habits that we look at when we were looking for our heart health, we could, for starters, consume the proper foods and portions, that being one of the most important things you can do to lower your risk. There's a difference between a serving size and a portion. If you're reading the back of your food labels, a serving size is really what it is for those nutrients listed on the label. So if you want to have two of those, if it says half a cup of whatever it is, and you're having a full cup, you need to know you're doing the math times two. So it could be great things like maybe you're getting a little extra vitamin C or calcium or something, but it also can be some negative things like saturated fat, trans fats, and extra empty calories. So I'll go through a little bit more of that, what we can increase in our diet to give us some heart health, and also where we should be limiting or avoiding certain things as well. So this is the picture of MyPlate. There is a website, myplate.gov, where you can go on and you can even look at your average caloric intake and see where the recommendations are for you. But generally speaking, about a 2,000 calorie diet or so, most people, no matter what your calories are, but it should have about half your plate of fruits and vegetables. I mean, we've been hearing this for years. You've heard it. I've heard it. I've said it, I can't even count how many times. But fruits and vegetables, a plant-based diet is a wonderful way to make sure you're getting the proper nutrients, antioxidants, minerals, vitamins, and all the good things we need for our bodies to stay healthy. The other half of our plate over here is a slightly smaller portion of protein, and we're looking at lean proteins. And then a little bit larger of the protein would be your grain group, and we're going to look at primarily whole grains as we're eating. And then we have our portion of dairy, and we want to look for some low-fat dairy options. So that's just in a quick picture. If you're having any given meal and you're having all of those items, that's kind of what your plate should look like. So let's move on to nutrients we might want to limit. I think if anyone has heard anything about heart disease, they really do know that low sodium is the way to go. So salt and sodium tends to be something we're always in concern with. And we want to aim for about 2,300 milligrams of sodium or less a day. This can add up easily, especially if you're eating a lot of prepackaged foods or restaurant eating. It might be harder to know, especially if you're not the one preparing the food. But if you do have a heart condition, we're going to suggest less than 1,500 milligrams. But what does that even mean? I have no idea how much salt that is. Well, about a half a teaspoon of salt is 1,163 milligrams of sodium. So that's like a good estimate. Most people who cook their food at home tend to not use as much salt or sodium in their cooking as they would if they were at a restaurant or some of those prepackaged food. So it's interesting to see that a lot more people are using spices and seasonings instead of just adding salt to those items. There is also something called saturated fat. So not just fats in general, we're talking about saturated fats that tend to be more unhealthy for us. And if we can replace those saturated fats with unsaturated fats, those are the healthier heart healthy fats, are unsaturated fats. This would include your nuts, your seeds, olives, avocados, things like that. So saturated fat, the unhealthy one, does increase your LDL, that loser cholesterol. And remember, we want our LDL cholesterol to be low. So we try to stay away from some of those saturated fats when we can. Then we also have added sugars. Now, there are some naturally occurring sugars in like fruits and vegetables and things like that that are not added sugars. They're just naturally in there. But we're talking about added sugars like baked goods and sugar sweetened beverages and things like that. These are things we should limit or avoid whenever possible as well. So, some other kind of categories to give you some examples of those saturated fat. Typically, saturated fats are solid at room temperature. So even something, most saturated fats are animal products, but even something like coconut oil, where even though it's a plant product, and I said plant-based diets are good for us, you just have to know there's a few plants out there that we should just be a little weary of. So if you think about it, if you've ever seen coconut oil in the store or you have it at home, it tends to be solid. I mean, you can pick up the container, open it, and turn it upside down, and it's not going anywhere. It's sort of a solid consistency. Same with butter. You put it on the counter, you can leave it out for like an hour, and it's not melting. It might get softer, but it's not. It's still solid. It's still in its shape and form. And then obviously the fat and grizzle on the outside of our meats and things like that, animal products. So that would be your saturated fats. That's where we want to limit and avoid as much as possible of those things. Then there's something called trans fats. Trans fats have been banned in the US to be added to any of our products anymore. Just a few years ago, this got changed. It's a new law. But it can still occur in the processes that these items have to kind of entail. So something like baked goods or fried foods, things like that, they can have some trans fats. That is why reading the label becomes your best guide. So reading the label and you'll see total fats and then you'll see trans fats and saturated fats on that label. That is where you want to kind of keep in check and have that on a limited basis. But I mean, look at these pictures. We know donuts are not good for us. We know French fries aren't great for us. Now, again, you can make your own French fries and you can bake them. Then they're a healthier version, but deep frying them, not a healthy version. Chips and things like that. If it's a baked item, again, read the label just to be sure. But, because now they're making a lot more heart healthy options out there. But we can kind of look at this and know certain things are not generally healthy for us. So just bear that in mind. But when you are in question, check that food label. So we talked about cholesterol earlier. So some things we can't control are that hereditary cholesterol that we just get from our genetics, but we can control our dietary cholesterol. Dietary cholesterol tends to be highest in things like egg yolks, beef, pork, poultry, a little bit less, but still in poultry, shrimp, organ meats, etc. The dietary cholesterol is something where we can limit where we're having so much of that. If you have somebody, who generally has high cholesterol to begin with, I wouldn't be making shrimp your, Thursday night dinner. I would be having maybe some other type of, cold water fatty fish like tuna or salmon or something, and then you're increasing your omega-3s. So that would be a healthier option. But, you again have to do your own research and know, where you are, physically and with your numbers, is going to be different than what mine is. So we're just giving some generalizations as to where you might need certain things to be increased or decreased. And then we have refined, or those bad carbohydrates, or those added sugars we mentioned earlier. These are typically found in your sugary desserts, your baked goods, with things that are baked with white flour, and then any sugary drinks like, soda or colas, and any, not like a sparkling water that typically doesn't have added sugars. But again, read that label just to be sure. And those would be things that you should limit or avoid. Okay, so let's go to the positive here. What can we do to increase our heart healthy habits and make them happier? Happy heart healthy habits. We can increase our soluble fiber by eating more fruits and vegetables, and even those whole grains. Again, we want to eat whole grains at least half of the time, if not all of the time, if you can. Eating more vegetable proteins. So I mentioned earlier that side of the plate where it's a protein. You can have a vegetable protein, let's just say like a soybean product, and it can fall into the protein category instead of a vegetable category. And that would be a nice lean protein that is heart healthy. Beans are a wonderful way to get vegetable proteins, really great at lowering cholesterol, like that LDL that we're talking about, and increasing your soluble fiber. Fiber is really wonderful at lowering triglycerides. Oftentimes you'll see the doctor will give you your triglyceride number when they give you your cholesterol number. If that's something you need to work on, fiber is your friend, and it will help lower your triglyceride and also get your cholesterol levels back in check. Decreasing your risk for overall heart disease by increasing your consumption of legumes, beans, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. I mean, if you think about these things, they're those healthier options. You can make one of those grain bowls and add just maybe a little bit, if you want, chicken of some sort, no fat, no skin. If you want that type of protein, or else, like I said, maybe you can go with a soybean product and have protein there. And then you add lots of fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds. You get all those textures. It's one of my favorite meals to make. Be sure that your animal proteins are the lean cuts. So whenever you can pick a lean cut, you'll see, even if you're using a ground meat of some sort, the ratio 80-20, 70-30, 90-10. You want the smaller number to be the fat content. So 90-10 would be great. Or, if you can stick to like ground turkey or ground chicken or something like that. But also your other animal cuts of meat, where even if it's something you can't control, where there is sort of that side fat layer or their skin, if you can remove it before cooking it, that's your best option. If you can't, then remove it once it is cooked so that you're not consuming that as well. Also consider your dairy products to be low fat or non-fat. There's really no reason to have all that fat in your diet for your dairy products. It's healthier for your heart, healthier for your body, and you'll just, have a same taste, same amount of protein, but you really won't have that added fat. And then we're looking to increase our omega-3 fatty acid. Omega-3s are great for our heart and great for our brain. So they are really important to keep in our diets. Things like walnuts, if you think about it, a walnut is shaped like a little brain. So you know that those are great for you. Flax seeds, fatty fishes. There's a lot of omega-3 items out there that you could read those labels and see where you might find them. So as we're preparing our meal, we're looking to increase our heart health here as well. An approach to a healthier eating, kind of all different ways through the day, whether it be your snack, whether it be your breakfast, your lunch. These are ways you can reduce your heart disease risk. So, instead of picking up some sort of, it's, 3 o'clock, I'm really, I need to go grab a coffee and a donut. Maybe don't grab the donut. Maybe grab a bowl of fruit. Maybe get a yogurt parfait or something like that. You still get that sweetness, you still get that satisfaction, but you're getting the low fat yogurt, little protein in there, Greek yogurt, even better for you, and the fruits giving you all those antioxidants and nutrition. You'll actually probably get a little help. Maybe you won't even need the coffee, because it will boost your energy levels by having usable energy that is better for you. Plan your meals in advance when you can. That's a wonderful way not only to save some money at the store because you're planning and you're sticking to your plan, but also you'll have sort of the outlook for the week. Oh, what are we doing on Monday, Tuesday, things like that. Serving reasonable portions. Like I said, there's a difference between a serving size and a portion size. Portion size is just however much you put on your plate. There's no, regulation with that. But the serving size is what you're reading when you look at those food labels and knowing that you should really kind of keep it to a minimum. Shouldn't overdo it. And if you do need second portions, make it be a smaller portion if you can, because it really takes about 20 minutes or so for your brain to get that message that you are full. So once you're eating, give yourself about 20 minutes or so, maybe have a glass of water, and then see after about a half an hour or so of eating, you're like, I'm not really hungry anymore. Okay, I'm good. I'm satisfied. Including more fruits and vegetables and whole grains. I've mentioned that a few times, and I probably will mention it again. And preparing lower fat meals. So even as you're cooking your foods, trying to pick some lower fat options to cook them, not deep frying or, heavy cream bases and things like that. And then limiting those added sugars, as I mentioned before. So a Mediterranean lifestyle is wonderful for your heart. It really is. And as I mentioned, some of those other areas like Japan and Italy and all those areas before, they tend to follow some of these guidelines, maybe not specifically Mediterranean lifestyles, but they do follow a wonderful way of living, basically eating healthy foods, being physically active, and making sure they have great social ties. And the Mediterranean diet is really focused around those areas and countries around the Mediterranean Sea. That's kind of where it came from, the origins. But it can be specific to each country, but they are similar across the region. So let's get into that a little bit more here. So the Mediterranean lifestyle is generally like a kind of lighter breakfast, and then maybe taking a little longer lunch. That might be your heavier meal of the day, kind of that larger meal, and then maybe even taking a little nap, a little siesta in the afternoon. Now, again, not all of us can do that in midday, but whenever that might be, maybe you take a 20-minute nap once you get home from work, and that just helps rejuvenate you to move on to the next thing. Daily physical activity is a wonderful way to keep your heart healthy, and being social. We have learned, if nothing, these last couple of years, how important social ties are. And when we are kind of, alone, and how depressing and kind of sometimes catastrophic that can be. But it is important to be social and have those relationships both with your family and friends and, local friends, neighbors, even at work, having some social ties. The Mediterranean lifestyle also focuses a lot on their local fresh foods. So, a lot of fish in their diet, a lot of whole grains, a lot of fruits and vegetables. And you can like think about it. I mean, even this picture right here on the top right, I mean, it's just beautifully colored. It looks appetizing. You can almost smell the smells coming off of it. It just makes you kind of salivate, like, oh, that looks like something I would eat. But just by looking at those local fresh foods are the way to go if you can. And increasing your plant-based diet makes certain things easier to prepare as well. And I mentioned before, using lots of seasonings and using less salt. So the benefits of your fruits and vegetables: lots of fiber. Fiber is important for your digestive tract, but as we're talking about our heart health, it is important for our heart, our circulatory system, our respiratory system. It is important for all of our systems to work functionally together. So by having a proper diet and heart healthy activity that we do, actually is healthy for all of our body. If you think about it, if you put the wrong fuel in your car, it will not run properly. If you put the wrong fuel in this vehicle right here, it doesn't run properly. We've all had those days where you're like, oh, I just don't feel great today. Something's off. Well, maybe yesterday wasn't such a great eating day. Maybe yesterday you were inactive, you didn't do anything, and it affects you the next day. There is a kind of a rhyme and reason behind a lot of our little cliches, but one of which is you are what you eat. So I often say, you have to eat healthy to feel healthy. You have to be active to feel healthy as well. But sometimes you feel crappy if you eat some of those crappier options. Now, our bodies are a little forgiving. So sometimes you can have a bad day, and then you just have to get back on the horse the next day and make better choices and make, different options be those healthier options. But our fruits and vegetables are great because they give you a lot of nutrients that we need to stay healthy, like A, E, C, folate, etc. Minerals we need: potassium, calcium, iron, magnesium, and many, many antioxidants that help prevent against even illnesses and certain cancers as well. Most naturally, they are low in salt and fat and calories, and they typically do not contain much cholesterol, if any at all. And many colors, if you think about fruits and vegetables, I mean, look at this bottom picture here. It's like a beautiful rainbow down here. I could, that just is so beautiful and enticing. But the more colors you eat, the more variety from within each color. So don't only just eat broccoli as your green vegetable. Make sure you switch it up and get some different things, because you will get different nutrients and minerals from each item. Some of the favorites of the Mediterranean diet would be apples, lots of fruits and vegetables, obviously. Apples, grapefruit, dates. Oh, love a good date. You can do many things with dates. I love to even kind of stuff them a little bit and put like a little drizzle of honey as a snack, like almost like a dessert at night. You could do a cheese in the middle, or you can do like a little peanut butter or something like that. It's a wonderful. All you really need is like one date, and it's so sweet because the date itself is so sweet. It's just like a little dessert. And then lots of different vegetables like artichokes. We actually just made artichokes the other night as a side dish with our fish. It was like a wonderful pairing. Brussels sprouts in season right now. A lot of our winter hardy vegetables are in season. Great ways to increase some of your vegetables. Avocados, olives, tomatoes. I think these are all sort of, the obvious ones that we kind of love, especially this time of year. You want to get some sweet potatoes or some pumpkin, throw that into your dish. That's a great way to increase some of the nutritional value. So grains. Grains are really important for our fiber intake, as well as B vitamins like thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, and even folate, as well as the minerals like iron, magnesium, selenium, and zinc. Most importantly, we are trying to stress eating whole grains whenever you can. So make sure you are reading the labels and seeing if it says whole grain, whole wheat. You want to make sure that you're having those whole grains as at least half of the time, but more if possible as well. There are things like brown rice, barley, and oats. These are great ways. You can include them into your diet. The other day I just mentioned before, we love making these like rice bowls, kind of like a variety of things. Instead of rice, I made farro. It was a wonderful little addition. It kind of has the same texture as rice, but it's a little bit more nutty and a little bit chewier, and it gives a whole different kind of palate when it comes to throwing on a little chicken. We had some sweet potatoes. We added in some some avocado, I think, on that thing. This was last week sometime. I think we had roasted broccoli on there. Just kind of added them all together. I took like a lemon juice and olive oil and drizzled it on top. Gave everything such a wonderful flavor. So our whole grains, if you're looking at this top picture here, the outer layer here is where you're going to find your bran, fiber, vitamin Bs. I mean, there are some on the inner layer, but you're going to get more by keeping that outer layer. That's why we're telling you to have whole grains, as well as the middle layer. When you're buying the refined grains, they are stripping those layers off, so you're not getting as much nutritional value out of your grains. So you want to make sure that it is the whole grain. Whole wheat bread, whole wheat crackers, all those things are wonderful ways to include, even like rolled oats. If you want to make your own granola or something like that, throw that on top of your yogurt parfait. That's a wonderful addition as well. There are options for our gluten-free friends. You could still incorporate grains like quinoa, anything corn-based, buckwheat, and brown rice. So I just wanted to go over a few options that we have here. This is a link to our website that lists many, many different recipes, but this one particularly, our quinoa roasted vegetable salad, is a wonderful way. Like I said, like this is one of those bowls that I make all the time. This is just a different option. You can check the recipe out at that link, but it gives you a high fiber, good nutrient base, very low in fat and calories, and no cholesterol. It's just basically all vegetables on top. And then the quinoa here is actually where your protein source is. Legumes or beans, very good for you as well. If you are going to make them from a dried, bag of beans, make sure you soak them, follow the directions on how to do so. Make sure you rinse them. If they are canned, you want to rinse off any of that excess sodium. But all of these options are a wonderful addition to any meal, or just as your main source of protein. The benefits here would be that they're a great lean vegetarian protein, very high in fiber, both soluble and insoluble. Again, those B vitamins, high, great options for you. You can make many different recipes. I love this time of year making soups, throwing in whatever things I have in the house. That's a great way to do it. And then you're just increasing your nutritional value there as well. This recipe, again, it's listed at the bottom, but you can find it on our website. It is a red lentil butternut squash soup, very high in fiber, nutrient dense, just very low in salt and fat and calories because it's very simple recipe. You could throw in some other things in there to kind of make it your own way. That's what I was just saying about soups. I love sort of making a vegetable stock where I'll take, let's just say we had something where I needed to chop onions. I'll take the end of the onions, put them in a Ziploc bag. If I use tomatoes, I take the end of the tomatoes. If I use whatever vegetables I'm using, I put them in a Ziploc bag, those little ends that you're not using, you're going to throw them away in a Ziploc bag and freeze them. And then once I get like a gallon sized Ziploc bag, I will kind of put it with some boiling water, let it cook, maybe add some seasonings. You can always look up different recipes for yourself and strain it when it's done. And then now I have a soup base. And it's just all from those scraps that I would have thrown away already. And then I love to throw in, this is a red lentil. I'll have green lentils. I'll have, amaranth. I'll have all these different types of just additives that I'll add to my soups when I want to kind of give it a little something extra. Hummus. We love making hummus in our house. And if you go to our website, there are different recipes. This is a very simple one. You're just going to use a can of chickpeas, some garlic, olive oil, salt, and pepper. Basically whirl it up in the food processor, and it's just a great little snack, chock full of protein for you. It tastes delicious, and you can pair it with, some vegetables. You could do maybe a whole grain cracker or something along those lines. You can put it on your sandwich if you want, as like sort of instead of the mayonnaise, you could use it as your kind of sauce on your sandwich, something like that, and you're getting all those extra nutrients in there as well. So those healthy fats, I was saying we don't want to have those saturated fats in our diet, but there are healthy fats. These are more of our heart healthy fats, oftentimes found most people using olive oil. We have monounsaturated fats like olive oil, canola oil, peanut oil, and safflower oil. These are the ones that help decrease that lousy cholesterol, that LDL cholesterol. So by eating unhealthy fats, that's where you could, do yourself harm. But we are definitely always looking to substitute when we can using some unsaturated fats so that it is a healthier option for us. Another great recipe, New Jersey tuna steaks. Basically, you're going to use those cold water fatty fishes like tuna or, salmon. New Jersey has great local seafood and fish that you could find at your fishmonger, or even some of the local food stores. This is a super simple recipe using avocado oil, garlic powder, salt, pepper, and then some toasted sesame seeds. It's a wonderful way to incorporate some of those omega-3s that we were talking about for our brain and our heart. I love doing this at the end of the summer, particularly because I grow a bunch of different herbs. And this recipe is very simple. It's just like a basil pesto, and you just use your basil, fresh herbs, olive oil, and again, food processor. What I love to do is I kind of vary it up a little bit. If I'm growing anything green that's edible, I pretty much throw it into the food processor at the end of the summer. I throw in a handful of walnuts to add in some of that extra nutrition, some olive oil, lemon juice, and I get it going until it's like that pesto kind of consistency. The walnuts add a little bit of a nutty flavor, which is wonderful. And you basically can use it right then and there. You can use it, I've used it on top of like a chicken or something like that. Obviously, I've used it with my pastas, but I also love that at the end of the summer, I'm able to freeze it and I can put it in the freezer and have it for the winter time, so that when I'm looking for something that's fresh and, I don't have to go out and purchase it, just open the freezer, grab my little jar of pesto, and I'm good to go. Minestrone soup, again, this is one of those options to load it with vegetables, load it with heart healthy legumes, maybe throw in a little bit of those fun pastas, and you can have a wonderful tomato based soup that is great for your heart, your health, and your overall well being. Our heart disease prevention, again, prevention, that is what's key. Lifestyle factors, including maintaining a healthy weight, eating a heart healthy diet, and being physically active at least 150 minutes per week, which doesn't really turn out to be too much per day. It's like 21 minutes a day or something like that. It can all lead to a heart healthy lifestyle. So when it comes to that physical activity, if you had to take a dog for a walk in the morning for 10 minutes and then you decided at lunchtime you were going to take another walk for 10 minutes and in the evening you have to walk that dog again, that's another 10 minutes. That's 30 minutes. You've already beat your daily, quota, and it all adds up. It's a cumulative effect. So you don't have to think, "Oh, I got to do it all at once." In addition, if you do smoke, please, please, please try to quit. That is going to just do you better for your health overall, but particularly lowering your risk for heart disease. And if you have diabetes or high blood pressure, it doesn't mean that they can't be kept under control. As I mentioned earlier, you definitely can keep these under control, helping lower your risk and knowing that you're making steps in the right direction. Tips for that healthier you: adding a little fresh lemon juice. A lot of these tips are coming from that Mediterranean lifestyle. A little fresh lemon juice. We did this the other night with our fish. We squeezed a little lemon juice on top. It was delicious, added a little freshness to it, especially sometimes in the winter months. You're kind of eating a little bit more of those heavier meals, whereas the fish was light and fresh. And by doing that, it made it taste even, a little bit more. It was kind of like a happy dish. Adding honey to your coffee or tea is a better option than sugar if you do like some sweetness, because honey is about 25% sweeter than sugar anyway, and you're going to get some antioxidants and some health benefits by using the honey. Adding different spices and herbs to your recipes like turmeric or garlic, rosemary, mint, marjoram, all these things add a different layer, a little layer of different flavors, and adds kind of like a newness to the meal. You can try adding different things and seeing how you like it. For instance, that pesto, one time I decided I threw mint in with my pesto. Oh, it was delicious. Basil mint pesto was amazing. Using olive oil in cooking or just even a splash on your food afterwards. Again, like when I make that hummus, we'll kind of drizzle a little bit of olive oil on top so that as you're dipping into it, you're getting that little bit of olive oil flavor as well. Trying tofu, that's again those soybean products that I was talking about. It comes in different firmness. It's a great high protein, low cholesterol option, and it helps reduce your risk. Basically, tofu will taste like whatever you make it to taste like, and it gives you a lot of different options to, I think a lot of people are just afraid because they don't know what to do with it, but you can essentially find anything, all the recipes out there that, can make it be something you might like. Eating high fiber foods like whole grains, sweet potatoes, and beans, these are going to help you feel full longer and give you some of those nutritional benefits as well. Even adding mushrooms, these are great for antioxidants, great for your immune system, and even helping reduce certain risks of cancers also. Eating fish. We as Americans tend to not eat enough fish. And not everybody, obviously, but overall, we tend to not eat enough fish. And if you could increase your fish intake to about twice a week, that would be a wonderful option. And doing things like that salmon or the tuna, the cold water fatty fishes, but any of our fish or seafood is good for us as well, and making some heart healthy options. More fruits and vegetables, more fruits and vegetables, more fruits and vegetables. I can keep saying it. But these are very rich in your vitamins and minerals, fiber, healthy carbohydrates. They are just beautiful to look at. When you add them to your meal, it looks so pretty. Maintaining a healthy weight, eating a healthy diet, and moving your body more. That is key. So eating and socializing together, coming together, having strong social ties has proven to have a longer, happier life and improve your brain function. So it is beneficial for both children and families. It will actually help lower the rates of substance abuse, lowering the rates of depression and teen pregnancy, as well as eating disorders, and even raise self-esteem. Mediterranean diets say to eat less of red meat like beef, pork, and lamb, traditional desserts that are high in sugar and fat, and highly processed foods like your frozen foods in certain crackers and deli meats and things like that, snacks and chips. And we've mentioned already the sugar sweetened beverages. So we are looking to reduce those things being consumed and increase all of the other items we just discussed. Other ways to help increase your heart health is to be active. The benefits of being active, of course, not only controls and maintains your weight and reduces your heart disease risk, but also your diabetes, certain cancers, but it even increases and is beneficial to your mental health. I'm not sure if you've ever paid attention, but after like a nice active day, you're like, oh, I just feel good. What it does is it actually increases your endorphins and it increases your happy hormones like dopamine and serotonin. And that is going to increase your mental health and make you a happier person and make you feel good. So it's important to make sure that you are doing something, if you can, each day, and helping reduce stress as well. Because not only the stress we hold in our body and our muscles because we're moving, it helps release that stress, but also our mental health, getting outside, breathing in the fresh air, listening to the birds sing, that can help with mental clarity also. But even if you already have heart disease, we're talking about prevention here, but even if you already have some type of heart disease or heart condition, you can improve your possible outcomes by positive, healthy lifestyle changes. Every step makes a difference. Every little change can be helpful. So this is just a listing of different websites that I thought might be useful if you're looking to, kind of do a little bit more um, deep dive into different things.